Alex,
Yes, Jason.
what's Pokemon?
Well, Jason, I think in Japanese, Pokemon means pocket monster. It is literally the best game of the 21st century. Have you been living under a rock?
Yeah, I'm not playing Pokemon, but like, what is it? Like, what do you have to do?
So,
I don't even
okay,
get
so what
that.
are you talking about? Are you talking about the actual Nintendo game?
Like, what's the point? Like, what do you?
It's to catch them all. There's 250 Pokemon, which, if you're of my mindset, it's only 151, counting Mew and Mewtwo at the end of it. So I'm just saying,
You sound like such a loser.
what? You know so much more about like all this other, like amps and like audio stuff. And okay, I saw you playing Legos with your kids, which is awesome. But I'm just saying, if you're saying that this is a childish, stupid thing, you're doing the same childish, stupid things just in a different way.
Maybe it's not like. So here's my thing: if this were Ghostbusters instead of Pokemon, and I was like wrangling in some ghosts all over the map,
Well, there's ghost Pokemon.
well,
There's
no.
legitimately ghost Pokemon.
Goodness.
And actually, after the episode, after we're done recording this, I'm going to go into the graveyard behind the church, and I'm going to try and catch some ghost Pokemon.
See, that's ridiculous. Why you're going to be walking over dead people's bodies, robbing their graves to get some
They're
stupid
dead.
Pokemon?
It's just dead matter.
You are such a
Their
jerk.
souls have either gone to
You are
heaven or
you're
to
such
hell.
a jerk.
They're not in there. It's just dead flesh that'll rise up at the end of all things and be judged.
So in that graveyard behind us, the guy who founded Davison is back there,
Yep.
and you're hoping to find a
And-
Pikachu on his.
And there's maybe a Pokestop back there. I need to refill on some Pokeballs.
This is ridiculous.
Oh, it's only just begun.
Let's just get started.
All right. This is not your pastor's podcast. Well, we're finally here, Jason. After all the hype, after all the posts on Instagram and on Facebook and Twitter, we're finally recording our first episode.
You sound so fake.
I'm not fake.
Yeah, you do.
What?
This is funny to
Do
me.
you think I have a great voice for radio?
Yeah,
Or
I think you're pushing
podcast?
I think you're pushing the radio voice a little bit.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what I do. And I want to welcome our listeners to the very first episode of Not Your Pastor's Podcast.
How many people you think will actually listen to this?
I'm hoping for at least 1 million downloads.
A million.
The first episode, 1 million downloads, and if not, then maybe we'll commit Harry Carey and be done with it.
How many candy cigarettes do you think we're going to go through by the time we're done recording
At least
this?
24 packs.
That's the whole box.
We have insulin shots standing by, just in case we go into a sugar coma. It's going to be great.
I think this will get 100 plays, maybe.
I'm be happy with that. Definitely.
I think I'd be happy with that too. 100 plays.
So let's introduce the people to who we are, because maybe a lot of you are listening to this and you don't know Jason or you don't know myself and how we got to this whole conclusion that maybe we should jump on the bandwagon and start a podcast.
All right, let's do this. Who are you, Alex Ryman?
I am a white male, 27 years young. I'm a father of one very, very cute daughter. Her name is Ada May. I'm married to the most incredible woman ever, and her name is Shauna, and that's who I am. Where my story began was in Rochester, Michigan.
Wait a second.
What?
Did you think the movie Kung Pao was funny?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all anybody needs to know right there.
What?
That movie was terrible.
Why are
was
you dogging
awful.
Kung Pao?
It was a terrible movie.
It was awesome.
No, see, I think that's our like our subtle but gigantic age difference. That's why you play Pokemon and I don't. Because, I mean, it just goes back to
Do you remember
that,
the
like,
scene when he's partying with the desert creatures? That scene is hilarious.
I tried to forget as much of that movie as possible.
Oh my gosh, my friends and I quoted it. Actually, one of the ways that I started talking to Shauna through text before we were dating is I would randomly text her Kung Pao quotes, and then we would.
She knows them too?
Yeah, she does. We would talk about Kung Pao, and it would be like, I'm talking to a girl. This is cool. It was
That's
sweet.
so terrible.
It was sweet. Anyway,
I'm sorry. You were saying...
I was in the middle of my story before it was
Yeah.
rudely interrupted.
Okay.
I grew up in Metamora, Michigan, a nice little town just south of Lapeer, and really was kind of all about the American dream. I had a good carpentry job, and I was doing that, and it was really great. But then something happened, and I got saved. I realized that I was a sinner, that I needed Christ. And I went to church one day. I was listening to the pastor preach, and all of a sudden, just something clicked in my head, like I needed Jesus. And so I started going to church. I remember.
How old were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
17 years old. Did not grow up in the typical evangelical church. Grew up mainly Catholic, but got saved at 17. And really, the first couple years of me being a new believer in Christ, I didn't really do a whole lot. I went to camps and played guitar a little bit, but I didn't really start coming into my faith until I started dating Shauna. And she sat me down one night and she told me and said, listen, I don't think you're the spiritual leader of this relationship.
And she was hot, so you're going to do
I was
whatever
like,
she said.
I'm going to do whatever you say, sweetheart.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. Actually, no, it made me think about, man, what am I doing with my faith, with my walk with Christ? Basically nothing. I'm just walking around in circles trying to catch Pokemon this whole time. I'm just being just a ridiculous fool.
We're going to keep coming back to that.
Yeah, Pokemon's great. It's so good. I leveled up today, my Pidgeotto to a Pidgeot.
I really don't want to hear about it.
It's
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what any of that means, so it doesn't... It's
Let me just let you know. On my way over here, stopped at 4 Pokestops. Refilled up all my items. It was great.
It sounds
Hey, if you're listening to
ridiculous.
this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Pokemon. Get it. Who cares if Google's monitoring all of your stuff when you log onto your Pokemon account?
See, that's what... I downloaded it for the boys. For the boys.
For your children.
For my children. I downloaded it for them, and I did not install it because it wants access to everything.
If you have a smartphone, they're already accessing your information.
I know, but it's just like, why does Pokemon need this?
Because they need to know how to market it better to you.
Why do they need all the contacts, like, in my email?
So they can get information?
I don't know.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen either way, and then we're all going to get that mark of the beast, and we're not going to be able to enter
Maybe
into Millennium.
Pokemon is the mark of the beast. Do you ever think about
They
that?
are monsters, or beasts, some would call them.
I think Pokemon.
Oh my gosh, maybe it is.
Pokemon's the mark.
I gotta delete my app now. I gotta delete my app.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the story with Shauna, and she basically called me out on my crap. She just said, "You are not living for Christ like you should be." So it was after that time that I really started just reading the Bible and trying to figure out, okay, what does Christ want me to do? And as I started reading the Bible, I found myself like just loving the Scripture more and more. And it was just amazing. I felt like every night I would sit down, and this was like super, super, I guess, religious and kind of like corny Christianity. I would like get a candle out, and I would light a candle, and it would just be like the only light in the room.
One like this with a very white Jesus on it.
Yes, exactly. The Jesus candle that your wife got you. That's no. And I would like sit in a room and I would just read the Bible with that candle lit, and it was like just these amazing moments where I would spend time with God in prayer and in His Word. And then I realized, I'm like, man, I need to be doing something with my faith. So I did the only thing that made sense at the time was I started a men's Bible study. Never taught a Bible study, I'd literally been studying the Bible for like a year and just decided to start a Bible study, and my friends and I called it BOSS, which stood for Brothers of Scriptural Studies.
That's pretty darn impressive, because when I first met you, I came to a boss thing. Not the very first time I met you, but I came to one of those Bible studies you asked me to come to. I didn't know you'd only been studying the Bible for a year because, like, out of like top 10 best church experiences, I'd put Boss right up there.
Really?
I would definitely put Boss up there. Like, Boss is what church should be, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not with just a bunch of dudes, but
Yeah, we should
like,
probably include women.
yeah, you know,
That might be good.
procreation and stuff.
Absolutely. It's one of the ways the church grows.
Yeah, that'd be an expert like church growth model. Just keep having babies.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but in all seriousness, I walked into, I think it was out in Lapeer.
Yeah. My old farmhouse that
Yeah.
my buddy Chris owned, but he let me rent graciously.
Yeah, so I go to this Bible study you invited me to, and it was a group of dudes who should not have been in the same room together.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, because you had like what looked like little punk rock kids.
My brother-in-law, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had, well, he wasn't the only one. There was more in there,
Yeah,
I
well.
thought.
There was one kid, his name was Garth, and I don't know where he's at now, but he was like a new believer. But when he first came to my Bible study, he was black nail polish, black shirt. He had those really baggy like parachute pants that had the chains that were connecting the legs. He shows.
Bondage pants?
Is that what they're called?
I think so. I think you're talking about bondage pants.
Well, he had them. And he was in my Bible study, and he was like, we asked him to read out of 1 John, and he read out of the Gospel of John. And so it was like this cool moment where we had to explain to him, like, okay, this is John's Gospel. He's writing about Jesus, and then later this is a letter that John is writing to the church in 1 John. So it was kind of like this cool moment, like, oh man, I've never met anybody who's never noticed like the difference. There's John and 1 John. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But no, I started Boss literally just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do ministry, but I'm just going to try this. And this is, okay, so this is kind of dating a little bit what was going on. Mark Driscoll was huge at the time, and I loved him. And he was literally one of those pastors, like, he was the pastor to me over the internet. I remember I would come home and I would just listen to all of his sermons online. And he was like I've never heard a pastor preach like that before. And he was like yelling at me, telling me to stop being a dumb, lazy man. And then he was just this great Bible teacher. And I really emulated a lot of my teaching styles and even topics that I would preach on from him. And so he discipled me, I guess, through the internet.
I'm just saying, Boss was a pretty impressive start to ministry, just because of the group of guys that were in there. And it was a group of guys I didn't know, but you sat down, you had a meal together. The conversation was honest. And then at the end of it all, we did this short little Bible study. I don't remember what the Bible study was, but I was just remembered being amazed. Like, this group of guys, you was Luke in there. He's got a gun on his hip. You got, little punk rock kids. And you got me. It's my first time there, and I'm just like, this group of people, they don't look like they belong together, but they're all coming together in prayer and sharing like earnest and honest like
I miss those
needs
days.
and just open discussion. And when I thought about starting this what we're doing here, like Boss is the first thing that came to my mind is how do we recreate that? And at first I was thinking like a YouTube like show, and I told Chad about it, who's the guy behind the cameras here, and then we decided that we don't have faces for YouTube, hence the pop filters.
Yep.
And
Just hide behind it.
Jess, my wife, brought up the idea of a podcast to your wife at a mom's thing.
See, it's all about our wives.
Yeah.
We are not.
They really do run everything.
They do.
Yeah.
I don't do anything without her say so.
No, me neither. That's just like being a smart husband.
No, it is. I think it
Yeah.
is. Happy wife, happy life.
After you,
I'm gonna get that tattooed
I don't
on
like
my arm.
that saying, but
Why not?
I don't know, cause like
You want your wife to be happy, don't you?
I want her to be happy, yeah, but
I want my wife to be happy.
you're right. This is all about making wives happy,
Yep.
because I don't want to
This
get in
is why
trouble
we're doing the
later.
podcast.
Yeah.
It's not for Jesus. It's because we want our wives to be
it's
happy.
to make our wives happy,
Which
because
she's-
they thought we'd
yeah.
sound cool.
But with a
on a
screaming
podcast.
baby at home, I don't think my wife's very happy that I'm not there helping her.
Yeah, this is with 3 little boys at home. This is vacation for me right now. I'm on vacation.
So-
That might be the coolest part of this.
So now that you're on this vacation, why don't you take me on a little trip? Tell me a little bit about Jason's story. We've heard a lot about me and my
yeah, I'm sick
accomplishments.
of hearing about you.
Okay.
No, I am a preacher's kid.
You are.
That's how I guess that's how you would say. I mean, faith was just always there in our family. It was never not there. So one of my earliest memories is in Montrose, just north of Flint there, kind of way out in the outskirts. One of my first memories is putting my foot on a shovel going into the ground to plant our church, to start the building. And I remember, this church plant and running around. I think we met at like a post office or something. I just remember running around that. And we met at this other
Federal building.
Yeah,
Scandalous.
yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it was the post office. I was little. I was really little, but those are some of my first memories. And I, was saved. Whatever you want to call it. My dad led me to Christ at 5 years old, or thereabouts, and we just got started from there. But I would say, you get older, you go through high school and stuff, and I don't want to say I lost my faith. I think it was there the whole time, but man, I had some rocky moments, kind of. At some point you're just kind of going through the motions. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it was that for me. So I didn't have the super spiritual read my Bible by candlelight that you did, which I think is cool. I think it's incredibly cheesy, but I think it's cool.
I rarely do that anymore.
Yeah.
I do it mainly holding my daughter, trying to be like, all right, let's at least read this Jesus Storybook Bible so I can get some scripture in now. So I'm not as holy as I used to be, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about having kids is you find out that you're not very holy very quickly. Now, I always tell everybody, I thought I was a good person until I got married. And then Jess, pointed out that I am not a good person. And then I thought I got to a point where I could fake her and, fake myself into thinking I was a good person. Then we had children. And then I definitely realized I am not a good person, and I really do need Jesus. So, I mean, I met Jess, and I grew up Baptist, and met Jess, who was Church of Christ, and there's a huge difference there that I really didn't,
It's like chocolate and vanilla, completely different.
Yeah, just like you following Shauna, I just follow Jess. It's like, she goes to Church of Christ, I'm going to go to Church of Christ, And I in punk rock bands, I walk in there with my blue hair, and this very conservative church.
We got to put those pictures up on Instagram. I don't think everybody's seen those.
Yeah, I got some. I like my blue hair. I would do blue hair again if I did not work in an office. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
All right, if you guys want to send us $100, Jason will dye his hair blue and walk into his office job.
Oh, no.
It'll sponsor the podcast for a year. If somebody wants to give a gift, a generous tithe and offering of $100, Jason will dye his hair blue.
I tell you, for $100, that will fund us for the next full year on SoundCloud. I would do that.
You would really?
I was
just kidding.
No, I'd walk into my office with blue hair.
But then we'd buzz you, and then you'd be fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe dye it back. I don't know if I'd buzz myself. Jess likes my long hair.
Yeah.
So I would buzz myself.
My wife likes my long hair.
Jess likes the long hair. I know I got under a hat right now, but yeah, if I were to shave my head, she would throw a fit.
So
probably divorce.
Over that.
Yeah.
Because you took a Nazirite vow.
Yeah.
And you don't want to cut your hair.
Yeah, if the beard were to go, she would definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's legit.
I mean, I got a fat face under here,
respect.
and the beard hides it. And so, happy wife, right?
Yeah.
That's what we were going with?
Maybe that's what we should call this episode.
Happy wife.
All right, so what was your first ministry experience?
My first ministry experience. Holy cow. So, I felt called to be a pastor at a pretty young age. And I had no clue what that meant, zero. And so out of high school, playing in bands and stuff, started a band with Jess, and that became our ministry. But because we were Church of Christ and they don't allow musical instruments, we kind of talked to some of the elders and staff there, and they said we could do it as long as we weren't praising Jesus. As long as we didn't go into any venues and praise Jesus while we were doing it. So we were,
That seems really backwards.
yeah, so we weren't a Christian band at all. And most of them, I suffer with panic disorder really bad and depression. So a lot of the songs were about that. And we'd go to different clubs and stuff, and there'd be like these hidden Christian themes within the songs, but depression and panic disorder and the stuff that goes along with that resonates with people, because I think a lot of people suffer those things, but they don't know what to do with it. Especially in the Christian world, they really don't know what to do with depression. I'm sure we'll have a full episode on that down the road, because I see so many people who don't get it. Like, depression's like a real thing. Like, it's a real chemical imbalance. It's not necessarily just somebody having a bad day. And so we connected with a lot of people through that. And I think that was ministry. I mean, when we had people come up to us afterwards, even just randomly saying, "Hey, I found Jesus because I heard your band play."
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was truly awesome. So, I mean, yeah, we were, I don't even like using the word Christian band, because I don't know that we actually were one, although we were mostly all Christians playing music. But, after Jess and I had kids, things kind of shifted. And so the band days, all the fun and the touring and the traveling, that all ended, and we got involved in our local church. So I started teaching 5th through 8th grade boys at our church, and I did that for a while, and just kind of had that itch to speak and to preach. And there was one time at our church where they had a call for elders. They were looking for elders, and I knew at this particular church I was not old enough to be an elder. But I went forward after church, and I said, I want to be an elder, a pastor. What do we do to get this thing rolling? And there's the young guy. This is cute, kind of response. But I did have one of the other elders at the church. He came up he was excited that I was taking that initiative, and for almost 2 years, 3 nights a week,
Wow.
we studied the Bible. And I mean, for a couple hours at a time, and we went through all the Church of Christ doctrine first, which I'm still trying to put some of those pieces together in my head. Like, why did God have me do that? Why did God have me learn so many things that I just fundamentally disagree with now? Like, why did I learn all those things? I still don't know sometimes. But we did all that, and then we started going through Genesis and then Exodus, and I mean, 3 nights a week on top of going to regular church. And it was shortly after that the wheels kind of fell off in a big way.
What happened?
So
You commit to this guy for 3 nights a week for a couple hours. I mean, were they training anybody else to be pastors at the church?
No, just me.
So here's the young prospect. Here he is, wants to be in ministry, and then what happens? How'd you get shut down?
So at our at the church there, on the 4th Sunday of every night, they would have like a song service, and they did everything a cappella. And they would have one of the 5th through 8th grade boys, or one of the younger men, maybe in high school, whatever. One of the younger guys would get up, and he'd do like a little 10 to 15 minute Devo at this thing. And I told the elder who I was studying under, I was like, I want to do a Devo. I want to do one of these. And he's like, all right. And so he's like, put together a lesson and we'll review it. Him and there was one other elder. I think the church was around 500 people at this point.
Oh, wow.
And so, so I put together a mini sermon, and I sit down with the two elders of this church, and we go over it. And they were critiquing it along the way, which I anticipated. Honestly, like, I speak now and preach, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, if a pastor is generous enough to let me speak from his pulpit, then, you know, I want to do him the honor of going through whatever I'm going to say, because those are his people that I'm talking to. They're not mine, and I could lead them astray, you know, on a whim. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we go through this thing, and it's looking good, and we're planning out a date and everything. And then the elder who I had been studying with, he goes, just think, the kid who came into church with blue hair is going to deliver a sermon. And the other elder looked me straight in the face, and he goes, you're the kid with blue hair? You're not doing it. And I hadn't had blue hair.
For real?
I hadn't had blue hair in 8 years.
He just shut you down right then and
Yeah,
there.
you were the kid who walked in with blue hair? You're not doing it.
I feel like this would be the same guy that would look at the demon-possessed man that Jesus healed and say, oh, you used to have demons in you and used to cut yourself and have chains and yell at people? Man, you can't be a part of this church, even though Jesus would have healed him. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's legalism at its worst.
Yeah, and so like the next day, I go back to my regular study with the elder who I'd been under for a while, and I goes, what happened? And he said, I don't know. I think he doesn't want you to preach because you had blue hair. And so
That sounds
like, even
so ridiculous.
Even the other elder, the two of them couldn't agree on it, and you know, I just like that was so disheartening. I mean, theologically,
Just shut you right down.
yeah. I
Did
felt
you not
like,
want to be a pastor after that? You were like, maybe I shouldn't be a pastor
No,
anymore.
and I think I handled it as best as I could. Like I tried not. I didn't hold anything hard against the guy. At least I tried not to. I mean, here I am several years later, still talking about it. So I guess there's still some, but no. I mean, definitely, I felt shut down. He never gave me the solid reason why. You know, and then other things too. Like I want to be a deacon. I was old enough to be a deacon, not an elder at this particular church. You're not being a deacon. But why? Why can't I be a deacon? And then, you know, I look at the church budget and I ask questions about the budget, and they no longer publish the church budget after that. And so I just felt like every time I took a step to make an initiative, I wanted to be involved. I really did. I got shut down at every turn. And then it got to a point where I'm out.
So you and your wife, and how many kids did you have at this point? Did you have Rex?
We had two.
Okay.
We had two. Oliver and Gunnar were born.
So you guys just said, see ya. We're out.
Yeah, it didn't go that smoothly. I mean, yeah, it was time to look for a new church, and we found the church we go to now. And I want to make something clear real quick, like on this podcast, when we talk about the church, we're not talking so much, when I say the word church in the general sense, we're not talking about the church that we're currently going to. Mm-hmm. Like, I want this to reach beyond that. We're talking about the church as a whole.
Church universal, all the
Yes.
believers in Christ.
Yeah. So what was I talking about? I got derailed.
You're talking about when you came to the church
Oh,
that you're
yeah.
at now.
Yeah. So I had shared with our pastor that story, and he said something that was it was like a breath of fresh air. You know, I told him that, and it's like because of the blue hair and all that jazz, and he goes, that's a load of crap. He's like, screw all that. Let's you and I go and let's build the kingdom. And I was like, holy, nobody's ever said that to me before. I've always been shut down every turn. Every time I try to do something, I write curriculums, I write sermons, and every single one of them has been blocked. I write down ministry ideas, blocked. I mean, everything. I wrote down a whole children's ministry curriculum. Whole thing was blocked.
You still have that?
Yeah, you know why that one got blocked?
Why?
Because I had, I want to do puppet shows for the kids, and they thought that might be too entertaining. for the kids. Yeah. Yeah, that was just another nail in the coffin. And so, yeah.
We really don't want our kids to laugh at this church. We don't want them to laugh.
Yeah, so for the and I'm not saying, like, I already said it was a Church of Christ. I'm not saying all churches of Christ are bad. I've visited other churches of Christ that are very good. It's just this particular one with the particular leadership at a particular time, it was not a match. It was definitely not a fit.
Okay.
And so, yeah, to hear a pastor say, screw all that, let's go build this thing. Like, to me, that was the breath of fresh air that I needed. It was a complete clean start over. I think we took a few weeks off, and I'll be honest, the first time we walked into the church we go to now, I hated it. I did. I hated it with a passion, and I thought it was the most ridiculous, overproduced, fake thing I had ever seen. Saw the pastor who was up there. I was like, that dude's not real. I mean, I was so jaded from church experience. I was like dejected. And then you come to this thing, and this just is an overproduced mess, I thought, you know. And that was me being judgmental. Like,
Yeah.
it took me a while, and I'll admit that, like, me being judgmental like that was wrong of me, but it's just where I was at the time. And then, you know, slowly you get to learn people, you get to know people, and you get to see their hearts. And you're like, no, these people, they really love Jesus. They don't always get everything right, but they're always trying to. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, like, the effort, the journey was something that really, you know, caught me, that I could hold on to.
Well, I didn't have that much of the similar experience. I remember, you know, I was, like we talked about earlier, I was doing Boss, and I was trying to just do ministry the only way I knew how, which was just to have guys over for pizza and read a chapter out of the Bible and talk about it. And
so you didn't ask for, like, permission from anybody, though. You just went and did it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't really doing much with my faith at the time. The only thing that I really did was I sang in choir. I was a bass. Me and the pastor, the lead pastor, were the only guys singing bass.
Yeah.
And
You want to sing some bass for us right now?
No.
Okay.
I don't have a hymnal. I need my brown hymnal. 464 was "It Is Well With My Soul." Oh,
buddy, we're in a church, man. We got hymnals galore.
oh my gosh, those things. I love hymns. That's why I love King's Kaleidoscope so much. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, no, I didn't ask for permission. I didn't even know I was supposed to ask for permission.
Yeah, I think that's pretty rad. Like, you're just like, I'm gonna open my Bible. I'm just gonna do this.
And the Lord was very gracious.
Yeah, I mean,
I look
but
at
that's
some of my
so
notes. I'm like,
genuine,
oh my
though.
gosh, these notes are awful. My notes are so much better. But it came to a point where my wife and I, before we were married, we were kind of talking about getting married, and I said, you know, now that I'm this spiritual leader and I've been studying my Bible and been leading this Bible study, we need to go to a church together that we like. Because I would visit her church, she would visit mine, and we both weren't feeling it. So that's when we came to the church that we're at now. And it's been a long road, and that's actually, that's where I first met our pastor, Pastor Josh. And the first thing I said to him was like, hey, do you guys do marriage counseling? And he's like, yeah, why don't you come over? And his wife made this excellent Mexican lunch. Like, it was like make your own burrito buffet. And it was awesome. Like, that was one of my pregnancy cravings when my wife was pregnant, was Mexican food and caramel. And so anytime somebody like says, you want to make your own burrito? I'm like, yes, I would. I would love to make my own burrito. Anyway, I digress.
And Mexican food's like the staple when you're inviting new people over.
Everybody loves it.
Yeah, nobody doesn't love it.
It's great for all people with food allergies as well.
Yeah, because you just lay everything out there and just, like, make your own.
Make your own
Yeah.
burrito.
Yeah,
You want sour cream or you don't want sour cream, which is stupid if you don't use sour cream.
I hate sour
Anyway,
cream. Hate it.
so I went over to Combs' house, and Josh Combs, I went over to his house, and I told him, I said, I kind of feel like I feel called to ministry. I've been doing this Bible study at my house, it's going really well. Even though I don't have a lot of ministry training under my belt, I feel like it's growing. The Bible's starting to make sense. I'm like able to remember verses, and I said that then, and I should have said, well, the Holy Spirit was bringing verses to memory for me.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta give him mad credit for that. Anyway,
That's funny because about at the same time I had gone to him too and said, I think God's called me to be a pastor.
so you got the invite.
Like we're in the same time frame of.
So this is
should
when
we
we
do this
met.
pastor thing. Yeah.
So we met at Josh's pastor's academy that he started, and it first started at his house.
Yeah, because he had a number of guys come up to him and say, I feel like God's called me to be a pastor. Which, what church does that? Which church that you know of has a number of young men all at the same time say, I think God's called me to ministry. I think God's called me to be a pastor.
I mean,
That's incredible.
it is. And I mean, some of those guys, we know them still, we're still in contact with them. Some of them have full-time ministry jobs, and others of them are just really faithful to the church, and they're just killing it, just doing ministry while also trying to, raise a family and hold down jobs.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember the first night I went to Pastor's Academy. I had my giant ESV study Bible. It's back here, and I put it on the little makeshift music stand that we were using for a pulpit, and I broke the
You
music
crumbled
stand.
that thing.
And we all laughed. And the funny thing was, I still had to preach my sermon.
You preached it bent over.
I
at the
preached it bent
waist.
over like this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, so we're going to be in Luke 15, lost sheep.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And actually, when I got done preaching that sermon, Josh says, that was the best 4-minute sermon
You nailed it.
I've ever heard.
You nailed it.
I said, it was
Absolutely.
only 4 minutes?
Yeah.
And then I sat down, and then I think you got up right after me, and you preached the longest sermon
Yeah.
ever.
I'll show you how to do it like a boss.
I always used to say I used to surrender my time to you. Whatever time I didn't use for my
Yeah,
4-minute
because we had a
sermon.
10-minute time limit.
Yeah, so I would just say, Jason can just have my time.
Yeah. I'd
And so
use
you
the
get
other
done
15.
preaching your long sermon, and Josh says, "All right, Jason, like, time's up," and you're like, "Well, I want to sing a hymn." You're like, here we go, hymn boy, showing off for the pastor.
I think on another one I wrote like a poem and like read a poem that I wrote.
You're so artsy.
Yeah.
You're so
end.
artsy.
Well, we got to connect with people.
So now that we've met each other, we're at church together. Let's talk about some of those weird and awkward ministry moments because.
boy.
I mean, now people know that, hey, we're called to ministry. They heard our stories a little bit. What are some of the awkward ministry moments that you've had?
All right. So, I mean, through this little pastor's academy,
Okay, yeah.
how we got started in like real ministry,
Yeah.
one of the first things we do is we go to drug recovery homes. We go to Odyssey House, Salvation
Yep, I remember
Army,
that. Yep.
and you and I did that a lot. We
Yeah.
went there together and which I was not ready for that. I really was not. I was thinking church job, like I'm going to be a pastor somewhere at a nice comfy church job
Yep.
and I guess not do anything real, and God said the exact opposite. Like just threw me right in. Like,
Yeah.
You're going to Odyssey House and you're going to be doing some hard stuff right off the bat. And it was like, so awkward moments. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah. What was awkward moment?
Awkward was this one time at Odyssey House in downtown Flint. I had one guy show up for Bible study.
One guy, and you
One guy.
still did it.
Yeah, and this guy, he had been homeless. They were letting him stay there. And I started going through my lesson with him, and it was clear, like, this dude wasn't going to get it. Like, the drugs had messed with his brain to the point where he wasn't going to get, and I'm trying my hardest, and it was like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And the subject, it comes up at the Salvation Army too, smoking. Is smoking a sin? And this guy was thoroughly convinced that he was going to hell because he smoked cigarettes. which is funny because I got the candy cigarettes. And that's what the lady at the counter, when I was picking those up, she's like, I remember these before smoking was a sin.
I remember that.
And so, yeah, this guy thought he was going to hell. And no matter, I could not convince him that he wasn't. And so, I mean, we go through
I mean, I shouldn't laugh. That's kind of...
we go through this big long, it was really sad. I could not convince this guy that he was not going to hell, and because of smoking cigarettes. And we get to the end of it, and he sounds like genuinely like, yeah, I'm never going to smoke again. I'm like, dude, you missed the whole thing because I was just telling you how it doesn't matter. Or no, if I smoke, I'm going to hell. I was like, all right, buddy. No, you're not. But, we'll say, I prayed with the guy. And then he leaves. I watch him walk right out front and light up. And I was just like, oh, man, that poor dude. Like,
That's something that tobacco companies don't tell you, though.
Yeah.
If you smoke, you go to hell.
yeah.
It should be right underneath the Surgeon General's warning.
I just felt so bad because this guy couldn't shake it. And he walks right out and lights up. It's just like, it was so hopeless on his part. Like, it was pain. What about you? Awkward moments.
So my awkward moments are really it's one long story.
Okay.
So after I started coming to the church for a while that we're going to, and I started getting involved in different things, and Pastor Josh offers me a job. And he sent me into the most awkward ministry position I think the church has ever had. And that is, go be our Flint Connections director at our Flint location that they just opened up. And it was like, all right, so this really naive, never went to seminary, literally has 2 years of a men's Bible study as his ministry profile under his belt. Let's send him to Flint. And I got to admit, I was super pumped. I was like, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to win the city for Jesus.
Flint.
Flint.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I was incredibly jealous.
You are way more qualified, in my opinion.
I was incredibly. That's what I
like,
thought
why didn't they
too.
pick
It turns
Jason?
out I was not way more qualified. But
I'm not
on
qualified.
different
I'm not
grounds.
there anymore.
But I was so incredibly jealous at the time. And keep going.
It's okay. The Lord forgives your jealousy.
Okay, I'm glad. let me smoke another cigarette.
Just calm down. Have some more sugar sticks.
Another roundup.
Oh, man. So my whole ministry experience was really one big awkward moment because, one, I've never done this job before. Before that, I'd been working in a wood shop for 7 years. So I'd been doing carpentry. And
Like Jesus.
yeah, like Jesus. That's why carpenters are more holy than other professions.
That's why you got the long hair.
Exactly.
I mean, this guy looks like a carpenter. The scale's ridiculous.
He's got some nail marks. Oh, bad joke.
Yeah, that was not cool.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, keep going.
No, so I go out to Flint. This white kid who's been literally living in the woods his whole life in Metamora. And I literally just start meeting people and just kind of going around downtown Flint, trying to just get a feel for what ministry looks like in the city. I remember I met with a lot of locals and just asked them, like, what do you need? What is church look like for you? And a lot of people told me that, yeah, we're just not about church, or we already go to this church, or whatever. There's a lot of churches in downtown Flint. But one of the craziest things I ever did, and it was really awkward as well, is I'm like 6 months into the job. Not even 6 months. Actually, I think it was only 3 months into the job. And Pastor Josh says, hey, there's a couple that lives by our church building in Flint. I want you to go marry them. And I'm like, what? I'm not even ordained. I'm not even on the payroll as a pastor. I'm a director of connections. And he's like, just go online and just get ordained online.
Just get the fake one. By the way, Jess has that too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is
She's
it-
done more weddings than I have.
Oh, well, you'll get there, buddy.
Yeah, someday.
And so I get online, and literally it's so easy. If anybody wants to get ordained to do weddings, all you have to know is your name, how to spell your name, and your birth date. And they literally send you an email saying, you're ordained.
It's like $5, isn't it?
No, I didn't have to pay anything.
Oh, I thought it was like $5.
I wasn't going to pay $5.
Anyway, keep going. I keep
Anyway.
interrupting you.
So I go to this house, and I meet with this couple, and they were a really sweet couple, and they were nice, but they lived in this really old house in Flint. And I said, well, where are we going to do the wedding at? You guys want to use the church building? What's going on? It's like, we're just going to do it right here in the living room. So I go in the living room, and I'm wearing like khaki pants and like a short sleeve button-up shirt, trying to look somewhat professional. And I get there, and the guy says, "You're too overdressed." I was like, "What? You're too overdressed?" And he gives me a leather biker vest to wear. I have the picture on my phone. Maybe we'll post it on Instagram. And so so I said, all right, let's do this marriage thing. So I get up there and literally preach a 5-minute marriage sermon, like, what does the Bible say about marriage? And then I did the I do's, and they did the I do's. And the other funny thing, it was really awkward. The guy who's getting married, his ex-wife was in the living room watching her ex-husband get married again. And so, I did the service, I do's, I signed the paperwork. And the guy asked me, he goes, how much does this cost? I said, it doesn't cost anything. I'm just happy to do it. I'm happy that you guys were my first wedding that I did. And he's just like, no, seriously, how much? I was like, I don't know, just whatever. I don't care. So he hands me $40. I was like, okay, sweet, $40. And I think I put it in the offering plate when it went by.
Super Christian.
I didn't want to get paid. But then after that, he asked me, he says, hey, you want some weed? I was like, nah, I'm not that kind of Jesus person. And then I left.
See, what if you would have put the weed in the offering plate and kept the $40?
Yeah, that would have been fun. I should have done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I could go on and on and on, just so many different stories. But maybe let's move to some more kind of more momentous occasions. Like, what was maybe your best ministry moment?
Probably the first time I preached at the Salvation Army.
First time you preached at the Salvation Army?
Yeah, so we're doing this Pastors Academy thing, and I'm watching everybody being plucked up into ministry. I watched you go off into ministry, and here I thought I was like a special deal, I thought I was like the best speaker
Blue hair boy
in class, and everybody's getting a church job somewhere except for me. And I just remember being so dejected, thinking maybe this is not what God wants me to do. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And so I remember driving to work one day, and just praying to God, like, God, if this is like, if you want me to do this, like, just show me something, give me something. Mm-hmm. And so that day's over. I'm driving back home from work, and I get a phone call from Josh saying, we need somebody to preach tonight at the Salvation Army. And I've got nothing prepared.
I've gotten many of those phone calls.
But I was like, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is what God wants me to do. And so I've got nothing prepared. I don't even have my Bible. I've got my King James Bible of Shame in the trunk, And so I grabbed that Bible. I've got no outline. I don't know what I'm going to say. And I get up there at the Salvation Army and I preach, and it's a wreck. Like, the whole sermon, it's disastrous. It's the worst that I ever spoke to anything. It's the worst time I ever spoke, period. And the guys at the Salvation Army gave me like a standing ovation when I was done. That's what I love about preaching there, is the guys are so, like, they're so hungry for Bible that they're like on the edge of their seats. They're either on the edge of their seats or they're sleeping, because they've had a long day. They've had a long day. But I had so many people like tuned into me, just like absolutely sucking at preaching. And this, so many guys came up afterwards and asked me questions, and I didn't have my Bible with all my notes in it. So everything's just literally falling apart right in front of me. And this guy asked me a question, and I fumbled through it. And Tiffany was there, and she was the one who had requested that I speak. And we led a guy to Jesus.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then she had told me
that's way awesome.
She told me a week later that guy got saved off my sermon. And to me, that was God showing me, like, hey, punk, like, I'm going to use you, but on my terms and in my way. And it's not going to be because you're an awesome speaker. It's not going to be because of how good you are or how cool you are. I'm going to use you because you're going to glorify me. And to me, that
Preach
was
it.
like, that was like the moment, like another like burst of energy, I guess, to keep going.
I guess my best ministry moment, one of the things that we did in Flint, and it was truly incredible, was we used to go all over where the church was located and even to some neighborhoods that weren't by the church, and we would pick up kids for like a kids program. And I remember at one point, this was crazy, we had 43 kids in our auditorium, and all of my volunteers couldn't make it that day. So there was 43 kids that I picked up on a bus and 3 adults, counting myself, that were running the show. And it was a madhouse because one kid's screaming
That
and
sounds
crying because
nuts.
he misses his mom. So then I'm down to 2 volunteers.
See, that alone makes me glad that I did not get that job. Like that's one of the things I'm talking about. Like I would not have been equipped. Like I was bitter about not getting a church job. I would have hated that. I would have hated that so much. I probably would have quit right there.
It was super frustrating, like just straight up frustrating. But at the same time, there would be weeks I get to stand up in front of 20 kids, 43 kids, however many, and I would preach Jesus to them,
Yeah, that's cool.
or I would preach an Old Testament story and somehow connect it to Jesus. And it was, I'm not even the greatest preacher to kids. Like I'm not a great preacher at all. But like especially to kids, I just fumble over words because I want to use these big theological terms, and I can't do that for kids. It's like, what's sanctification? What's predestination? That sounds fun. Yeah, I don't
Let's
think
talk
I've ever
about
said
that.
that. On another episode, we'll talk about it. But through all of that, I think it was after a year or so, I met this kid, and his name was Cordell, and he started asking some really good questions, and he's like 8 years old. And I don't know if it was something that I preached or somebody else started preaching, but he started acting like a new person. He wasn't the same anymore. And our old children's director told me, he's like, I think Cordell's saved. I think he's given his life to Jesus. And after asking him some questions, like it was definitely like, you're saved, dude. You believe in Jesus. You believe in what he did for you.
That's awesome.
And I had the opportunity to baptize him. And he was the only kid we baptized from our Saturday Kids program. But all the stress, all the running around, handing out flyers, all the just craziness of having 43 kids and only 3 adult volunteers, that moment was all worth it.
Yeah.
Actually, his mom got baptized as well. She came and got baptized that Sunday. So
That's
that
so
was...
cool.
And it's so funny, too, because when we brought the baptismal in for the kids to look at, they were all like, you guys got a jacuzzi in your church?
Yeah.
We're like, kind of.
Yeah, yes we do.
So
It's
but
probably a Pokestop too, right?
it maybe is. I haven't gone down to the building yet to see if it is or not, but maybe it is.
All right, let's talk about, if you want to. So you're sharing all your ministry in Flint and the highs and the lows of it. And we got a blog on our website right now.
Yeah.
that we started. You lost your position.
Yeah, I'm currently not employed by the church.
Yeah. So do you want to walk us through any of that?
We'll do it real quick.
Okay.
Because I know we're coming
Yeah,
up. We're
yeah.
coming up on our time.
Yeah, we don't want to go too long here. Alex doesn't want to talk about anything real. Huh?
No, what?
I'm just playing.
So there was I worked at a church for a year and a half, and I honestly thought like this is the dream job, and it was almost kind of like a bragging right because I had thought for the longest time that I was called to ministry, and even the way I got hired was incredible. I didn't even hand anybody a resume; they just said, "Do you want this job?" And I was like, "Yes, I think this is what God is calling me to." I remember feeling very just unsettled at where I was at my job at the wood shop. And I said, God, whatever you want me to do next, I'm going to do it. And literally the next day, Pastor Josh calls me and says, "Come into my office on Friday. I want to talk to you about something." I was like, "Oh, I wonder what this is going to be about." Hopefully, I'm not getting excommunicated for having long hair
Or blue
anything
hair.
or blue hair.
Just saying.
That happens too, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
And so I go into his office, and he has the rest of the church staff come in, and he says, "I want to offer you a full-time position at our Flint location." I was like, "What? God, that was fast."
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been praying about it, and I've been really feeling unsettled where I'm at. And I honestly told God, wherever he wants me next, whatever he wants me to do, I'll do it. And I thought, that's it. So May 2013, I hired on at the church. And a year and a half later, it was a crazy, awesome ride. My wife and I grew so much.
You moved to Flint.
Yeah, we moved to Flint. We
Yeah,
left.
Nobody's doing that right now.
I mean, there's people doing that.
Yeah.
You just don't hear about it.
No,
And
not at
they're-
all.
they're
That's what
the-
I'm saying. You don't hear about it at all.
They are the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
People who have nothing in common with people from Flint. Some of them never even lived in an urban setting like myself. And
Yeah,
saying,
you didn't.
"We're going to move to Flint, and we want to see Jesus move in this city."
Yeah, you were willing to step out there on faith and just go for it.
Well, honestly, when we were looking for houses, I didn't want to live in Flint because I didn't want to live in an urban
I wanted you to
environment.
move across the street from me.
I remember that. Our kids could have had squirt gun fights. It would have been
Yeah.
awesome to play Pokemon. We're talking about that too much. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so finally somebody kind of told us, like, if you want to be legit, you got to buy a house in Flint.
I think that somebody was me.
Maybe,
'Cause
I don't
just
remember.
read David Platt. You gotta be radical, Alex.
Oh gosh, radical church, radical moving.
There you go. Yeah.
So yeah, we bought a house in Flint, and it was funny. Somebody came up to me at the church
2, 1.
How are we starting this?
Is there a clap? I'm waiting for a
I
clap.
clapped already. All right, let's start.